Hello, welcome to Unboxed God, where we detox from religion and discover the God who refuses to fit inside the boxes we were given. I'm Tolu Sarah Johnson, and here we explore who God really is, beyond fear, beyond formulas, and beyond everything we were taught to perform. If you're hungry for a real relationship with Him, you are in the right place. Let's dive in. So this is still continuation of the current book, which is Reframe Your Suffering. Yes. So this is going to be chapter 5, which is this is not the end of your story. Still in the theme of the pain you thought was against you. When you feel finished, but you're not, there's a place where many people reach in life where everything feels finished. Not because you are dead, but because you're tired. Tired of waiting, tired of longing, tired of trying. And when you reach that place, something dangerous begins to form in your mind. Yes, this is how my story ends. You stop expecting anything new. You stop believing anything can change. And you quietly accept that this must be the final chapter. But that conclusion is not true. It is exhaustion speaking. Yes. You know, what I saw in my husband, one thing I always admire about my husband was this. He never stopped trying. He trusted God for healing because He taught us. He trusted God for breakthrough in business. He trusted God for open doors. And often the answer he received was no. But he kept going. He kept believing that there was still more of his life. He never expected that where he was the end. And to be kind, it came to the time I was thinking, why? Why do you still try? Where do you get the energy from? Because if I was in his position, maybe I'll probably have given up trying. And we must learn to believe this truth as well, that this is not the end of your story. You live throughout eternity. You are an infinite being. The body is finite. Yes, it needs to go one day. But you depart and continue to live your life in eternity, wherever that takes you. So it is never the end of the story. The place where you feel done is the place where God begins. Yes, you might be tired of hoping, tired of believing something good can still come out of what you have lived through. You feel like you have tried everything and nothing has worked. And in that moment, you conclude, this must be how my story ends. But I've learned something working closely with God. The place where you feel you have reached the end of yourself is often the exact place where God begins. The end of you is the beginning of Him. And when your ideas have run out, when your strength is gone, when you have nothing left to give, you have not reached the end of the story. You have reached the place of surrender. Yes, that was how it happened to me. The moment I reached the end of myself, I know this because I've been there. Throughout my life, God gave me resilience, a kind of stubborn strength. Yes, I have got a stubborn strength. I did not give up easily, and I do not give up easily. I could always encourage myself through challenges. But when my husband passed, that was different. It was my pillar, my safe place, my closest companion. I am not close to my immediate family. It was just us. Me and him. And in that moment, I knew I had reached the end of myself. Yes! There was no strength left, no strategy, no encouragement. I was undone. I was face down before God. And for the first time in my life, I truly surrendered, not politely, completely. And that's where God met me. Yes, I was totally undone. I did not have no energy left in me. And this surrender made room for power. It made room for God to come in. Because when God met me in that place, he said, Tolu, I have a mission for you. You're going to work with Matthew Robo Payne. My husband passed on May 2023. That was August 2023. And I was wondering, so you have to take my husband to make room for Matthew Robo Payne to come into my life? You know, recently, I interviewed Jacob, who was Israel, who wrestled with God, and he had his limb broken. And God said, Tolu, I had to break people's limbs sometimes to be able to get their attention. And I was like, God, was my husband living a way of you breaking my limb? I said, yes, because that was the only way I could get your haul, and I needed you. And I see now, because today, which is March 2026, I have published over 125 books on Amazon. I never dreamed of being a writer. I never even imagined I could have one book to my name, let alone over 100. These books poured out of my pain, out of my walk with God, out of my surrender. Because when I lost the one thing I thought I could never lose, I realized, what else do I have to lose? So I gave him everything. And it was in that surrender that divine power finally had room to work in me. And that's why I can tell you with confidence, this is not the end of your story. Allow God to step in. It might be the end of you, but it's not the end of God working through you. And of course, once I surrendered, God began to work in me because there was finally room for him to work. God is what I call the 11th hour God. It comes in when you have exhausted every option, so that when it steps in, you know it could never have been you. And you begin to realize something powerful. Nothing you have gone through is wasted. Yes, and I saw this in my husband Benjamin in his final days. When my husband became unwell, he came to the end of himself too. Benjamin was always strong. He believed he could never be sick. Even in previous health challenges, he would pray and bounce back, agile, confident, certain. But this one was different, my friend. In the last 6 months of his life, I saw a different side of him. I saw him cry. I saw him plead with God. God, heal me. Please give me another chance. I don't want to die. My family is still young, of course. He had young children. He was only 40. He came to the end of himself, and in that place he surrendered. In his last week, he said to me, Tolu, we have built a foundation together, and I know you can continue without me. Oh, that was heavy. I became emotional, and I told him, you're going nowhere. You're staying. And he looked at me and calmly said, you will be fine. 2.5 years later, I can say this with tears in my eyes. I'm not just fine. I am more than fine. God has been my strength. He has been my pillar. He has been the husband of the widow. And he has transformed my life in ways I could never have imagined. But I had to come to the end of myself to get here. So what about if God is looking for you to come to the end of yourself so that you can get to where he's taking you? Are you willing to reach the end of yourself? Because that is often where God truly takes over. That is where divine power finally has room to work. And I want you to know this. Nothing I've gone through Nothing that I've gone through is wasted. Nothing. Every trial, every outbreak, every failure, they have been added to what I now call my spiritual CV. Curriculum vitae. We all know what that means. They are building in me resilience, depth, empathy, and strength for a purpose you cannot yet see. But God sees it already. But you cannot see it. Yeah. Even the crushing moments are messy. Yes, they dismantle pride. They reshape you. They prepare you to become a version of yourself you would never have chosen willingly. So this is not an ending. It only feels like one because you are afraid of what comes after surrender. Because what Benjamin taught me about the fear of the end, when my husband was passing on, I was terrified. Terrified of what it means, terrified of what life would look like without him, terrified that this was the end. But Benjamin said something to me I'll never forget. He said, Tolu, I am at peace with God. There was no fear in him. He knew. He knew this was not an ending. He knew this was the beginning of a great and beautiful journey God had ahead of him. And that was hard for me to understand then. But I understand it now. That death is not even the final chapter. Yes, death is not the final chapter. That's why a lot of people dread dying. It's actually an open door into your final destination. We're a visitor here. And don't make this place about your entirety. Your life is beyond this. And one of the greatest fear humans carry is the fear that death is the final chapter. But from what I've come to know, death is transition. Where you stop here, you continue. You continue there. Nothing is wasted. Everything you've learned, it's not wasted. Even academically, nothing is wasted. Life in heaven is not started. It is growth. It is healing. It is restoration. Trauma is not ignored. It is healed slowly, gently over time. You don't arrive in heaven and become new. You still go with your trauma place. Your soul goes with you and your soul carries your trauma. So let's be clear about that. I learned that in heaven, there are films that show you the picture of what you were created to become. You begin to see the full design of your life from an eternal perspective. About a year and a half ago, Benjamin said, Tolu, you're going to write so many books. I could see your future, but I cannot tell you. And do you know what? I am happy not knowing. I am happy not having answers to everything. Why the rush? The Holy Spirit knows. Jesus knows. Benjamin knows. I am content to work it out. He used to be my prayer warrior on that. That's Benjamin. And that has never stopped. The growth I've experienced in my life is in part the fruit of his prayer. And for that, I am forever grateful. Your story is bigger than earth. So I ask you, are you fulfilling your own earthly purpose? Because when you look at the designer of your life, you realize your story was always bigger than earth. Your life continues to unfold in heaven. So when dreams do not happen the way you thought they will, many people conclude their story ended in failure. But sometimes what you think is failure is redirection. Matthew Robert Payne waited decades for what he thought would be an international ministry. It never happened the way he expected. But he discovered he's now fulfilling that very calling in the spirit realm, ministering and teachings in ways he could never have imagined in heaven. The prophecy was not wrong. The timeline was different. And the location was different. So, no one is truly lost. And God showed me something else that brought me to deep comfort. No one is truly lost. Even when people walk away, even when they deconstruct, even when they think they have shut the door on God, it follows like a loving shadow. Through songs, through conversation, through memories, through moments that gently call them back. So, the lifeline that holds it together. God and Jesus endure the present darkness of this world. by looking forward to the new heaven and new earth, a place where pain, suffering, and sin no longer exist. And this is why Romans 8:28 is not just a verse, it's a lifeline. Everything works together for good. Even the things that look like destruction, even the chapters you wish you could erase, they are being woven into a tapestry you cannot yet see. So the refrain here is your story is not a few painful chapters on earth. It is an internal journey, and the place where you feel finished is often the doorway into the next phase of your identity. You are not at the end. You are at the turning point, and the master author is still waiting. I hope you've been blessed by this chapter. I'll see you in the next chapter. God bless.